Good afternoon, and welcome to the Outdoor Art Club's program today, Drought, Fire, Parched but Prepared. My name is Lynette Dennison, and I'm working with fellow Outdoor Art Club Zoom team member, Diane Wagner, to bring you today's program. For those of you who are not familiar with the Outdoor Art Club, we are a nonprofit women's organization that was founded in 1902. The club engages in civic, cultural, and charitable work in our community. When we were founded, our membership helped needy and sick families with rent, food, and clothing. During the COVID crisis, we continued that tradition in many ways, including sewing masks and making financial donations to nonprofit organizations that help provide food and services to Marin County residents. We also established our first ever Zoom team that produced over 23 Zoom events over the past year for both our members and the public. Our prior webinars have been recorded and can be easily accessed at any time on our outdoorartclub.org website. Please use only the Q&A function to send your questions to our speakers anytime during each presentation. We are reserving a limited amount of time in between each speaker for a Q&A session at the end of their individual presentations. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jill Sampson. Jill is a member of the Outdoor Art Club and the program for today's event. Welcome, Jill, and thank you for bringing us today's program.
Thank you, Lynette, and greetings to everyone. This is our first lecture of the new season, so we'd like to welcome you. We're fortunate today to have two amazing speakers to discuss topics that are very much on our minds these days, the fire danger and water shortages. Each of today's speakers is an expert in their field. We'll hear from Fire Chief Hilliard first, and then Carrie Pollard from the Water District. And after each presentation, as was said earlier, we'll have time for questions. Chief Hilliard, as you can see, is a local resident who grew up in Mill Valley and attended Tam High School. After graduating from the Butte Fire Academy, he volunteered as a firefighter for Mill Valley Fire Department, the Tam Fire Protection District, and the Southern Marin Fire District. After a brief stint working for Skywalker Fire Brigade, Chief Hilliard was hired by the Southern Marin Fire District in 2000 as a firefighter engineer, where he served the community for 11 years before being promoted to captain, deputy fire marshal, and moving into the fire prevention division. Hilliard was promoted to division chief fire marshal in 2019, making him the first fire marshal for the fire district, serving the community, overseeing all areas related to fire prevention and community risk reduction. He's been married to his wife, Sandra, for 28 years. He has two children, 18 and 20, and I'm proud to be his aunt. Welcome and thank you for joining us at the Outdoor Art Club. Fred is coming to us from San Diego, where he's doing a conference. So the background doesn't tell you where he really is. Thank you, Fred, and we look forward to hearing your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate having the opportunity to talk to you and talk to you about some of these very important topics. And I'm going to share my screen right now. And here we go. Okay. So as we were discussing, we have obviously we're taking on a very new approach to doing public education and outreach. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, here we go. As my aunt said, I'm Fred Hilliard. I'm the division chief fire marshal for both the Mill Valley Fire Department and the Southern Marin Fire District. As we have a JPA, or actually a shared services agreement in contract right now between the two agencies. I'm very proud to serve both because I grew up in the area and I started as a volunteer in Mill Valley. So having the opportunity to serve the community I grew up in is a very big honor for myself. And of course, being in a San Francisco resident, I am a huge San Francisco Giants fan. couple of topics that we're going to talk about briefly in this short program is we want to talk about protecting the community, protecting your property, and protecting the environment. Obviously, saving lives and property is our number one topic for the fire district and for the fire department. And then we also want to introduce responsible vegetation management and what that means. So I wish I was bringing you good news. Unfortunately, as you all are aware, I can't bring you good news. Since 2017, we've seen an substantial increase in wildfire and loss due to wildfire within the state of California. And the fire seasons, unfortunately, are getting longer. Red flag days are increasing substantially. Resources, unfortunately, are becoming less available because of the size of the fires that we're battling. And the fires, instead of consuming thousands of acres, now it's millions of acres. And then, of course, we want to talk about the significant increase in community evacuations, and we'll touch on that as well. So a little review over the last 5 years. You can see by this slide. In 2017, of course, we had the catastrophic fire in the Sonoma County area. And in 2018, we didn't do much better. You can see that the average so far over the last 5 years, including where we are right now currently, is about 8,400 structure or incidents that we are involved in. Acres burned, we have approximately 2 million is the average. We've lost about 9,000 structures over the last 5 years as an average. And unfortunately, we've lost 37 lives as an average over the last 5 years. Currently, you can see that in 2021, we're at 7,200 incidents. We've burned so far 2 million acres. We've lost 3,100 structures, actually 3,200 structures. But if you look at the fatalities, we have had two, and you know, any fatality is not acceptable. These unfortunate fatalities were firefighters. This was not homeowners, and that's due to a better evacuation that we're taking throughout the state to try and get people out when fires have started and be well ahead of the game. So of course, we can't do anything without community partners. We are, as you know, we're a state, we have 5 stations within our district. Each station has 5 firefighters on duty at one time. We have to have the community partnerships in order to be successful in a catastrophic emergency. We look at the homeowner's responsibilities and the fire district's responsibilities together. The homeowner's responsibility would be hardening your home, maintaining your vegetation, having an evacuation plan, and then, of course, talking to your neighbors to help them in an evacuation. And in kind, we also provide the education, the enforcement, the engineering controls, and the emergency response to get to whatever the incident is, and then help you to try to understand what your responsibility is. Briefly, I'm just going to go over a topic on how fire moves, because this is a common question that we get, especially when we're addressing defensible space and home hardening. So quickly, there are 3 methods of fire and how fire. There are 3 methods. There are 3 methods on how fire travels. Tongue twister there. In the wildfire situation, we see that when fire starts, it's really a wind-driven event. So the prevailing winds really takes the direction of the fire along with the slope. Fire generally burns uphill, not downhill, although it can burn downhill depending on the wind direction. As the fire progresses up a hill, it preheats the fuel it's going to via radiant heat. And then, of course, we have direct flame contact after the fire, as the fire is progressing. during the time of the actual fire, it produces a lot of burning debris. And that burning debris is really what we're worried about most. We see that in most fire loss due to wildfire, it's not actually the direct flame contact that burns the house down. It's actually the debris that's burning, or embers that get into the attics or into the crawl spaces or on decks or in gutters that cause the loss of the structure. In this particular case, this was a coffee park house. You can see that the ground is completely littered with embers. And this house would have been a survivable house had it the venting and the gutters and the pine needles been taken out of or off the roof or away from the house, the structure itself. The small burning embers and the sparks that are traveling through with the wind are being nestled into areas where they can basically start small fires in little pockets, and then can obviously burn the house. So if you look closely, this house is actually burning from the inside out, not the outside in. So survivable versus defensible. So when you say, well, how do we defend and how do we survive? Well, this is kind of an extreme look. I just put these two pictures in because this was actually taken 3 weeks ago at the Caldor fire up in South Lake Tahoe. And when we were out touring this particular property, these two particular properties, which were side by side, you can see that in one on the picture to the right, you can see how the defensible space saved the house. It's fairly extreme, and of course we don't see that necessarily in our neighborhoods, but it doesn't necessarily need to be this extreme to be savable. But the concept is they've taken a lot of the vegetation that's the ground fuel, and they've replaced it with hardscape. You can see that there is actually a shrub that's near the house, and that shrub has not been touched by anything. And that's because that particular shrub is resistant against embers. So it's not just, making mineral soil around your house and taking all the really good vegetation away. It's being responsible for what vegetation goes into the ground and islandizing the vegetation so they're in pockets and they're not continuous growths, along with hardening the home. This home had the proper venting, had the proper windows, and didn't have anything against the structure within 3 to 5 feet that would ignite the home from the outside. So we talk about evacuations, and why is it important to talk about evacuation? Well, obviously we've learned some big lessons over the last 5 years. One of the biggest ones is the evacuations. When you go into a fire, especially a wildfire, and you look at the responsibility of the fire service, it's never been evacuations. That's always been a law enforcement job. The firefighters are fighting the fire, and the law enforcement are supposed to evacuate the areas, and they work in a unified command at the incident command post. So you would have a firefighter, incident commander, not a firefighter, but it would probably be a chief officer, battalion chief, would be at the incident command post, and you'd have a sergeant or a captain of the police department, and you would be working in conjunction, talking face to face, looking at the movement of the fire, looking at the particular vegetation and the wind as it drives the fire, to know where these evacuations should be. We've done a really good job over the last 5 years to zone out our entire district, the city of Mill Valley and Southern Marin, and provide homeowners with maps of their main evacuation routes. But to be quite honest with you, if you've lived in your home for more than 5 years, you probably know your evacuation route. It's the one that you use to go to the store. And with that, there's the responsibility, obviously, of knowing a second way out. So it's important that you know 2 ways in and 2 ways out. And again, we do provide maps, the evacuation maps with all the routes, including the community refuge areas, and you can get those from our website, or we'd be happy to mail you one. Another really important piece in the evacuation is how to know when to evacuate, how to stay informed. The best way to do that at this particular time, obviously, is to be notified via either telephone or text message, and that would be through Alert Marin. So there's a little bit of confusion with Alert Marin versus Nixle. So Alert Marin is the county's notification system, and we can notify areas that we want evacuated through the Alert Marin. And if you sign up for Alert Marin, you just simply go to alertmarin.org, you sign up, and what will happen is you could put your cell phone number in, your home phone number in. You can actually put somebody else to be able to notify you that there's an evacuation or emergency notification. Alert Marin tells you specific things. It will say evacuation, mandatory evacuation, please go here. And it'll tell you specifically where to go to. Nixle is a notification system that's run through the sheriff and the local police, law enforcement. And Nixle tells you just information. It may say structure fire on Green Hill, or it may say something like vehicle accident on Miller Avenue. It's not necessarily telling you that there's an evacuation or anything. It's just giving you information. So again, Alert Marin is going to tell you specifically that there's something for you to do. And Nixle is going to tell you just information that's going on in your area. Another really good resource, which has been in place just recently, is emergency.marincounty.org. And this is a public emergency portal that you could sign up for to get notices. Lately, all of the notifications that we've seen on this has been COVID related, but there is other information that does come out on this emergency notification portal. And so if we were to have a big evacuation, the information on the evacuation centers or the sites would be located on emergency.marincounty.org. And then, of course, you could always go to our website, which we're very proud of. We just actually launched the new website 3 months ago. It's very intuitive, and that's located at smfd.org. And you could also, from our website, get to any of these others, Alert Marin, Nixle, or emergency.marincounty.org. We've seen in these big evacuations that obviously there's not enough emergency personnel to go door to door and get people out of their homes. We obviously do the best we can with the resources we have, but we're really relying on neighbors helping each other. It's really important that you get to know your neighbor if you don't know your neighbor, or if you do know your neighbor and maybe don't have such a healthy relationship, you at least are able to come to an agreement that in a disaster, I'm going to knock on your door, or in a disaster, you're going to knock on my door. These are really important ways to be successful in getting people out of harm's way. Another really important way to do that is through our neighborhood response group. Currently, we're working on building out the program throughout the Southern Marin area, including Marin City, the floating homes, Sausalito, Strawberry, and Almonte. And we'd love to have those people interested become involved, and you can do that through nrgmillvalley.org. And you'll be seeing a lot of information coming out from the fire district and the fire department on NRG. Another really good resource is through Firewise. It's a nationally recognized program. And what Firewise does is it looks at the community. We walk through, we have a Jesse Fagoni, who is our vegetation management specialist. He walks through the area. He takes a look, gives everybody an idea of what their responsibility is to help with lowering the risk and reduce the fuel. And then we also have programs in place that we work with those communities. And then once the program has been listed through the National Fire Protection Association, they become a Firewise community. And we have plaques that go up into the neighborhoods that show that. It's a great way for the community to be involved with each other to, again, lower the risk due to wildfire. Quickly, I just want to go over what evacuation looks like, what it really looks like. It's not just somebody calling and saying, okay, time to evacuate. So there's 5 phases that happen during an evacuation. First of all, it's the incident detection time. That's when somebody calls up and says, there's a fire, I see smoke. That's when it's the evacuation starts, meaning that the evaluation, whether to evacuate or not, that's the time that we start looking at if there's a need. Then the decision time. Well, that goes, the engine companies get on scene, the incident commander looks at that and says, yes, truly we have an area, we have a fire that we need to evacuate people. So it's time to put the evacuation order or the evacuation warning out. Then the warning time. That's the time from when the actual command has been given out over Alert Marin to do something. Either shelter in place or evacuation warning means prepare yourself to evacuate, or an evacuation order comes out. The prep time is on the homeowner. The prep time is where you actually get the notification, you grab your go bag and you leave your property. And that's why it's really important to make sure that you have a go bag, because in some instances, if it says immediate evacuation required, then that means that you don't have time to gather stuff. You need to just grab your go bag and get out of the house and get down to a safety zone. And then network clearing time. What that means is that looks at areas within the evacuation zone where law enforcement and fire personnel go in to make sure that the area has been evacuated and the people have gotten out. So you can see evacuation time isn't really fast. That's why it's really important that you do not delay. If you get a notice that there's a potential evacuation, take evacuation warning as, hey, it's time to go get a cup of coffee somewhere else other than where I'm at right now. With that, as I said before, there's 2 routes and 2 modes is what you need to know. You can see in this picture, this vehicle has come up on a road, and the low-hanging power wire has not allowed this person to go any further than where they're at. The power line is hanging too far down. So at this point, you have to be ready to transition. Transitioning means you're not driving anymore, you may be walking. So make sure that you have 2 routes from where your home is, and there's 2 modes. With that being said, of course, growing up in Mill Valley, we all know that, you might live in an area that doesn't have a second means of egress. And that's all the more important for you to actually leave early. So when the fire is detected, it's time to start moving. A topic that comes up a lot is, okay, well, where do I go? Well, where you go is as far away as you possibly can, because we have emergency equipment and resources coming in to try to put the fire out. So if you get a emergency evacuation notification that says evacuation warning, I would basically, at that point, I would leave the area. I would go to Corte Madera. I would go to San Rafael. I would go somewhere other than where than Mill Valley. If for some reason, and there's many reasons, but if in the case where you get an evacuation order and you open your door and you see a wall of flames or you see the fire approaching quickly, you may not have the opportunity to get out get out of town. So we have pick these areas called community refuge areas. What they are, they're safety areas where you can go, and we call them in the firefighter profession, we call these safety zones. It's an area where we can retreat, where it's going to be hot, it's going to be smoky, but you're going to live through it. And we stay in these safety zones just long enough for the fire to pass through the front of the fire. And then after the fire has passed, then we go to retreat to a better safe location. If in the event that you get trapped and you have to go to a community refuge area, you go to the area, you shelter there, and then you wait for either law enforcement or fire to come and tell you where to go. So again, a community refuge area is a last ditch effort location for you to be safe in the event that you can't get out earlier. We send out every year so far for the last 3 years, we've been sending out these flyers. And on one side has this map that's in the lower left-hand corner for your area. And then on the back, it talks about how to put together a go kit. What is a go kit? Well, it's simply a backpack that contains essential items for you to be able to sustain yourself for at least 72 hours. And it's not necessarily water because obviously you can't put that in a backpack other than maybe a couple of water bottles, but it's more importantly things like, your prescription medications, a change of clothes, eyeglasses, a first aid kit, flashlight, batteries, a spare cell phone charger, some pet food, and a leash for your dog, stuff like that, where you can put it in a backpack so that if you have to leave last minute, at least you have something. We are planning to mail these out again next month, actually October. And we've always been sponsored by the Rotary Club of Mill Valley, and we really appreciate our partnership with them. And then county efforts. And this picture is Jesse Fagoni, our vegetation management specialist in the Highway Patrol helicopter. And the reason that he's in there is because when we're looking at projects throughout the community to do some vegetation management, fire fuel reduction, or forest restoration projects, fuel breaks, and that such, we team up with our partners in law enforcement and also with the Marin County Fire Department to access these areas, to look specifically at where we need to put these breaks in place and what we need to do as far as fire fuel and fuel thinning. Regional and countywide efforts include the MWPA, which is the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, and our local, the Southern Marin Fire Measure U funds. What this is with MWPA, it's a regional countywide effort to reduce fire fuel, and also public education and emergency notification. So we actually, each individual agency actually is tasked with their own area. So MWPA actually oversees where the funding goes, but we actually turn all the projects in and run the projects within our local jurisdictions. So currently we have 5 individuals that are specifically hired as defensible space inspectors, and we have 1 vegetation management specialist that looks over the larger projects. So you may have some people that are going to come to your door and give you some tips and maybe give you some ideas of what you need to do to reduce the fire fuel around your home. And it really, again, it's not necessarily a citation. It can get there, but it's not what our intention is. Our intention is to first work with the homeowners, and through available funding that we have, we could provide chippers. We can provide some knowledge as to how to reduce the fire fuel around your home and protect your structure if you're interested in home hardening. And then soon we're actually going to have a grant program which is going to help homeowners with the cost of the vegetation removal. And that should be in place within the next 6 months. And with that, thank you very much for your time and your effort to keep Mill Valley and Southern Marin Fire safe. That's my email address. I'm sorry it's blue, but when you put an email into the PowerPoint, unfortunately it turns blue. And then of course our website is southernmarinfire.org.
Well, thank you so much, Fred. Hi, Fred. Thank you so much.
Sure.
You've given me a lot of homework here. We only have a few minutes for questions. So one of them was, where can homeowners find resources about vent screens and gutter covers?
We have that on our website at smfd.org. If you go to the link that says how to, it's all in there. It's resources on home hardening.
Okay, and then there was a related kind of, can I have someone come to my house and inspect and advise me?
Absolutely, free of charge. Again, you can go to our website and it says how to inspect, get a free home assessment. And if you click on that link, then it gives you a link to how to schedule that inspection. And we're more than happy to come out and do that.
Fantastic. And then there was one about what happens if you have a neighbor who has a situation you think is dangerous. Is there someone you can call?
Yeah, you can absolutely call us. We get these calls all the time, and we try to be as discreet as possible. Yet we appreciate if there is a hazardous situation, if it's reported, we have a duty to act. So we'll go and take a look at it and we'll try to mitigate that situation.
Is there a geographic restriction for you to visit a home?
Anywhere in Mill Valley, and so it's City of Mill Valley, and it's Tam, Homestead, and then Alto and Strawberry, and then Sausalito. So the only area that we don't go is that little tiny area in Marin City, which is Marin County Fire, but they do have people that will be happy to come and inspect your home, and they do the same exact inspection.
This listener is in Novato. Who should they contact?
They can contact Novato Fire.
Okay, and they do the same thing?
Yeah, they just contact Novato Fire, and they have the same fire inspectors that'll come out and take a look at the home.
Will one of these notifications state where the fire is coming from so that we know how to evacuate?
Yes, it very specific. It'll tell you the direction of where the fire is and the direction it's moving, and it'll tell you where to go.
And are there any protocols that the fire department would recommend other than knowing your neighbors' names and phone numbers and emails?
So can you read that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, people are wondering what you recommend neighborhood action aside from knowing all of your neighbors. What else? Is there anything else you would recommend?
No, I would just make sure you know your neighbors well enough to be able to knock on their door and tell them that there's a fire coming or to get out. And then if there's neighbors within your block that have difficulty moving, getting around, or need assistance, have a plan together to help them with that evacuation.
Great. Okay, I think that's all the time for questions. We probably could have done a whole hour just on fire for sure. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we leave?
I just want to touch on the LRAD system, which is the long range acoustical device. In the city of Mill Valley, those are installed. They make a large siren sound, and then they have a notification after that. You've probably heard them. We are currently putting those in our district right now as we speak. We think that we'll have those done by the end of this year, installed. So they'll be within the entire southern Marin area. And we will be testing those, but you will have plenty of notification prior to us just turning them on and scaring, everybody to death. So it's gonna be a planned event where we do a practice evacuation in certain areas.
And for questions that I didn't have a chance to read, is there a way people can reach you?
Absolutely. My email address is fhilliard@smfd.org. Or if it's not a specific, but more of a general question, if you go to info @smfd.org, that would go directly to the fire prevention group, and we can disseminate who should be calling back on that.
Well, thank you so very much. We really appreciate it, especially knowing you're out of town.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure, and I hope that that everybody takes a little bit of a quick look around their structures and around their property to try to make their homes more fire safe.
Thank you so much. Take care. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, next I'd like to welcome Carrie Pollard. She's the water efficiency manager at the Marin Water District. In this role, she leads a team that deploys water saving programs for residential, irrigation, and business customers. Carrie has been actively working in water management for over 20 years and currently holds multiple water industry leadership positions, including Board of Director for the California Water Efficiency Partnership, a member of the American Water Works Association Water Utility Council, and president of the California Irrigation Institute. In her free time, she enjoys playing golf and planning her next trip. Thank you so much, Carrie, for joining us at the Outdoor Art Club today. And any questions anyone has, you can go ahead and put them in the Q&A section. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jill, for the introduction. Isn't it ironic, a water efficiency person that plays golf? But it's true. It's true. We all have our outlets. I'm here today to talk to you about drought, current drought conditions. I'm going to touch on some resources, touch on the actions the district's taking, but really starting with water supply and where we're at as a region. A quick overview. So Marin Water, our water supply is locally sourced. 75% of our average water deliveries or available water to us comes from Mount Tam and West Marin. So it's directly related to precipitation, rainfall, and in turn runoff. 25% of our water supply does come from Sonoma County, the Russian River water system, which is our friends and allies to the north. Over the last 2 years, we've seen incredibly dry conditions. 2020 was the second driest year in 90 years, and we're currently at 38% of our water storage capacity in our reservoirs. Usually at this time of year, we're at about 74%. So this is quite concerning. To show this in another way, move those guys. To show this in another way is a historic reservoir storage graph. So the green line is our average storage, and then you can see from 1984 to current where we land. The reason why we start in 1984 is that following the drought of the 70s, the district significantly increased our water storage capacity as a response to the drought. And so since 1984, we've had the same amount of water storage capacity available in our service area. And this low orange bar here is to really helps tell the story of why we've enacted the actions we've taken, why the restrictions we've enacted are currently in place. I want to touch on some reservoir storage projections. as well. So there's a lot going on here, so let me walk you through it. The black line is actual reservoir storage since January of 2020. The green line shows where our storage would be if we were to have average rainfall. The solid blue line shows where we would be with 50% of average rainfall, which is what we've seen in the last 2 years. It's been about 58%, or excuse me, about 50%. And then this orange line down here shows the 25% of average rainfall. The dashed lines, or excuse me, those are the dashed lines. The solid lines show where we would be if we were to achieve the 40% savings that the district's calling for. We just want to note that even if we were to have average rainfall, we'd be essentially in the same place we were, last summer, right? Kind of walking into potentially another dry year. So even if we get average rainfall, it's highly likely that we will remain in drought conditions for another year until we hit our full storage capacity. So what are we doing, right? Hopefully you all have heard about the conservation message, and that will be a large portion of this conversation. But I also want to recognize that while conservation is our top priority, and the reason why it's our top priority is because it invokes an immediate response. It allows for us to have immediate water savings, retaining water within our reservoirs. There are other actions that are being taken. We're looking at, we're not even looking at, but continuing conversations with Sonoma Water to look at collaboration on, if the water users to the north who are part of that Rush River water system reduce their use, is there more water available potentially for us during these drastically dry times? We're looking at recycled water, which is a great opportunity, but it takes time, right, to put in a expansion to our current recycled water system to offset some of the potable water use and transition it to recycled water. So that's not something that can happen in the next few months. Looking at groundwater storage and recovery, this is another longer term opportunity. What this means is working with other utilities who have groundwater wells and potentially taking some of the winter water when it's readily available, right, when we have some rainfall, and putting it into groundwater wells, and then that would make it available again for those users to withdraw from, and then in turn allowing us to have access to some of the additional water within the system. Desalinization is another option that's currently being considered and as an alternative. The challenges with desal is timing and getting a temporary facility, but the bigger challenge really is the limited capacity. I believe they've been able to find 2 packaged desal plant systems that would provide about 6 million gallons a day, which is about half of what we're currently looking at needing as we continue into these dry years, their dry winters. The water transfers and emergency tie is something that I'm sure you've heard about or read about. This would be also known as the pipe on the bridge. And we're currently pursuing the feasibility of this project and working through all the various aspects of implementing this type of project, right, which is a huge project that we're trying to get done in a very short time frame. And the backup option is really just to show that everything's on the table, right? It's not just about conservation. If there's a good idea out there, then we are absolutely vetting it and potentially pursuing it, including water by rail, truck, barge, and as I mentioned, as other opportunities come up, we take action to consider them. So recognizing the dry conditions that we are in, the board began taking actions back in February. And you can see over the months, essentially every month and sometimes multiple times a month, there's additional restrictions that are being put in place. The most recent was restrictions on new service connections around the types of land, or that they basically, not even basically, it is absolutely prohibiting that new connections have install any landscaping during the drought time, during this time of drought. We've also had various irrigation restrictions that have been put in place. So looking at the irrigation restrictions that are currently in place, we are limiting irrigation to spray irrigation to 1 day per week. So this would spray irrigation means your sprinklers, right, that kind of pop up and spray, or maybe the rotor type. Those are all limited to 1 day a week with assigned days. Drip irrigation has a 2 day a week limitation, and hand watering is exempt. And I note this because I don't want everyone to think, oh, I could just, run my sprinklers on my lawn and then go out and hand water every day. The thought behind the hand watering was really to recognize that, if you want to, if you have some, your highly valuable trees and shrubs, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to irrigate them as needed along with the vegetable gardens. And so that's really the intent around hand watering. We have some additional water use restrictions. Many of these have been in place, prior to the drought. They're kind of long-term prohibitions, but some are new. For example, requiring pool covers and spa covers is something new, as well as no power washing homes or businesses. But otherwise, many of these restrictions have been in place for potentially decades, many of them. Wanted to touch on some tips, rebates, and resources. I think that that's really what many of us are looking for when we see this call to action with a 40% reduction in use. So outdoor use is really, it's our peak demand. It's our water demands tend to double during the summer months due to irrigation. And so even though it's September, many irrigation systems are still running. If you can turn those off, even if that means your lawn or your grass is going to be stressed, but actually, allowing you to kind of focus any irrigation that you do apply to those most valuable trees and shrubs that are important in maintaining. We do have a turf rebate program. We're offering $3 per square foot if anyone's interested in permanently removing that grass area that they may have on their property. We offer $3 a square foot. We also have a number of free low flow shower heads, hardware, aerators, dye tablets, etc. They're all available at our office. You can drop in, or we're also out at numerous community events. So if you see us and you need any of these items, feel free to let us know, and we'll either get them off to you or let you know where you can pick them up. As part of our drought response, we've implemented a number of new rebates. Probably the most recognized and beneficial rebate that I've actually ever seen implemented as far as uptake. It's amazing. Is this Flume smart home water meter. If you don't know anyone who's installed a Flume, start asking around. And then if you still haven't met anyone who has one, you should be the first in your friend and family group to get one, because they are amazing. They provide real-time data directly to your device, your phone or your iPad, your computer, whatever you'd like. And it breaks down the water use, showing you exactly how water is being used within your home. What amount is going to irrigation, what amount is going to indoor. If you have any leaks, down to, that my daughter took a shower that took 9.56 gallons, and I got on her because it was longer than 5 minutes. That level of detail. The incentive that the district offers is we actually pay, it says $100 on here, it's actually $115, and the customer pays $50, so it's a great deal. That's just one of our rebate programs, though. We have hot water recirculating incentives, spa pool covers, clothes washers, toilets. And then the bottom two, I want to just spend a moment to touch on these gray water and rain barrels. We know we will get some rain. In fact, we got a 1/10 of an inch about a week ago or so. We know we will get some rain, and having a rain barrel or a cistern on site is really an opportunity to capture some of that rainfall that comes onto your property and allow you to use that in your landscaping or for other uses. Considering that this drought doesn't look like it's going to be ending anytime soon. So I really refer to these as drought-proof water supplies. So gray water, which would be, taking water from your clothes washer as well, is another great way to keep your water on site and reuse it multiple times. Even just capturing the water when you, do dishes or rinse vegetables or, turn it on for whatever reason, capturing that and using that water in your landscape, that's considered gray water as well. And it's a really great opportunity to just increase your water awareness and reduce your overall use. Other resources we have available, we do offer free phone consultations. We're quite busy, so if you call us, be patient, give us a few days to get back to you at least. But we do offer free phone consultations to help customers look at their water use and have a better understanding of how they're using water and what opportunities they may have to save. And there's contact information there. And then more information on all of our rebate programs are at marinwater.org/rebates. Another resource that's been launched fairly recently is this recycled water filling station. It is located right near the Civic Center on Armory. It's open Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 10 to 2. And then on Saturday, they have this upcoming Saturday, they have not this Saturday, sorry, in a week. They have a Saturday event. Essentially what you could do is bring your own container, do a quick training, and get some free recycled water that you can then take back to your property and utilize in your landscaping. There's a bit of training, as I mentioned, so there's some parameters that we want to make sure everyone's aware of when you're using recycled water, but otherwise it's free and readily available. We've had folks that come in and pick up 200 gallons a trip, and they go back and forth throughout the day to get enough water to irrigate their landscaping. And so this is a good opportunity. In addition, there are some construction firms that have tanker water trucks, and they don't go to our small residential fill station. They actually can go directly to the treatment plant and fill up their larger trucks. And so that might be another opportunity if you were interested in getting larger volume than what you would carry in the back of your own vehicle. Keep in mind, water is quite heavy, and so that's why we limit it to 300 gallons, because safety is a concern. Some additional resources and the concern around safety is driving around with heavy water in the back of your vehicle. It's not that recycled water is not safe, so just to be clear. Other resources. So we're asking folks to spread the word. It's amazing working out in the community. We still find residents that aren't aware of the water supply conditions that we're facing, and that we are in a drought, and that there is a need for us all to engage as a community to reduce demands, so that we can get through these upcoming dry months. Staying connected, we have board meetings every other week, and there are a number of new restrictions that are kind of constantly being considered and adopted. So you can get more information on kind of what's happening and what current water supply conditions are on our website. And of course, reporting water waste. We are currently doing water waste patrols within the community. We want to use the patrols as an opportunity to educate residents and businesses around inappropriate water use, meaning not complying with our prohibitions. But if you see someone wasting water, whether it's gutter flooding or irrigating on a wrong day, or there's a leak or whatever it might be, please reach out to us and let us know. Our first step, of course, like I said, is education. It's not penalties, or we really want to work with the community to bring awareness of the drought. And with that, I'm sure there's plenty of questions. I see them starting to come in. Here is our contact information. You can find more information at marinwater.org/conserve. You can email us at conservation@marinwater.org. And there's our direct phone to our hotline. With that, I'm going to stop the screen share and we can start looking at some of the questions.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I'm a Flume user, and I obsessively check it. So I have to say it's been wonderful. I highly recommend it. There's several questions about the pipeline across the bridge. One is, why was it removed in '77? And the second is sort of, what's the time frame if we needed to put it in again?
Yeah, so it was removed in '77. because Caltrains owned the bridge and it was a temporary pipeline, right? So it's actually was placed where the current bike lane is. So if we put the, if and when we put the pipe back on the bridge, it won't be in the same location. It'll actually be either hanging on the side or on the upper deck. We're working with Caltrans to find an appropriate location, but it was removed because the drought ended and we, increased our water storage capacity in other ways, and it was deemed that it was not needed to be retained. As far as timing, the board is starting to take action around kind of incremental steps around kind of prepping to get this to build the pipe on the bridge. There's a lot of moving pieces, as one can imagine, but the goal would be to have the first flow of water available to us in next summer, June to August kind of time frame. So June at the earliest, August is probably more likely.
And the same thing with the desalination plant.
We're looking at the time frame exactly. It would be about the same. Yep, they're literally both moving in parallel paths. Just to see, we don't want to stop with one and have the first option fall right. So we're kind of they're moving parallel, so that we can ensure that we have options come next summer.
Here's one on reverse osmosis. Seems like a viable alternative, although it requires a lot of energy. Are we researching that as an option?
RO. I'm not familiar with an RO system as providing new water. Usually an RO system is taking water and then treating it even more so. So maybe they're referring to desal. I will ask them to maybe provide a bit more, or I'll look that one up. I don't know the details on that one. You've stumped me. That's good.
There's another one on tertiary treatment of wastewater. LA is doing that for potable water.
Yeah, so we call that direct potable reuse. So what LA is doing, it's slightly different than direct potable reuse is treating wastewater and then putting it directly into your drinking water system. What LA does and Orange County does is they treat it and they put it in their reservoir, and then it sits in their reservoir, and then they pull it, or their groundwater wells, and then they pull it out, they treat it again, and then deliver it. So it's slightly different, but the state is actually establishing rules around direct potable reuse. They currently don't have, it's not currently permitted or in place, and they expect that to be happening in 2023. So it's really new technology that even the entire state is still kind of working through.
Wow. Here's one. Are there regulations on emptying and refilling jacuzzis? This is a Marin question.
Yeah, that's a great question. There are no prohibitions currently on draining or filling pools or jacuzzis. Being a good steward of our water supply, if you can hold off on taking that action, it would be much appreciated. We cannot prevent you from doing so. We probably will hear from your neighbors that it's going out to the gutter, which is there is a prohibition on gutter flooding, so there's that. But if we're in drought. I mean, you saw how much water we have available, and really is filling a jacuzzi or a swimming pool the best use of our limited water supply at this time. Our board is, continuing to hear from constituents on the concern around allowing pool filling, and I think we will see them starting to take that into further consideration in the coming board meetings. But currently, there's no prohibition.
Thank you. Are there any plans to expand the number of reservoirs and or deepen the existing ones?
We've talked about locations where additional reservoirs would go, right? I mean, just kind of brainstorming, and our head of operations has not found that there's going to be, really an opportunity there. As far as deepening them, that would be the dredging and where we put all that material. Where does that go? Right, has to go somewhere, which might be a solution with solving. If the amount of water we would get from dredging was significant, and it's not. It's only less than 100 acre-feet. It's not enough to really make a difference when we look at current water supply. But it has been it was absolutely brought up, and they did the evaluation on it, and they just found that there's not enough, it doesn't really yield enough water to make a significant difference.
Could you please discuss the 40% water conservation mandate in greater detail? Has it been sufficiently discussed? I think everyone's kind of terrified about that.
Yeah, I mean, so the 40% was adopted back in April, and it's a district-wide goal to reduce demands by 40%. I believe as of last Friday, we were at 28%. If I recall, we're kind of hovering in the high 20 range as a community. And I think that, you know, we were hopeful, staff and the board, that you know, when we had that call, that 40% action, we would see that reduction, and that would really help us get through these winter months and get us into the summer months without taking further restrictions. And we're just not seeing it. And in light of that, in light of the savings that we're just not really seeing community-wide, on Tuesday, the board will consider adopting and establishing water use, prohibiting excess water use beyond established limits, meaning here's a threshold, and if you go beyond this amount, then there's going to be a penalty associated with it. And so that's kind of the next step that we're needing to take as we move into the winter months, recognizing that during the summer, we just did not see the savings that we really needed.
Wow. All right. I don't think we have time for more questions, but is there anything else that we didn't ask that we should have, or how people can ask questions later?
Yeah, so they can, our boards are open forum, so you can always ask questions there, and you can reach out to the conservation@marinwater.org email if there's a specific question that you'd like answered. And I appreciate all of you attending and learning, and your willingness to pay attention to the drought and share that information with others. And I really feel that, you know, we all need to work together as a community to get through this. And I know we can. So I thank you for your time.
Well, we needed an optimistic message at the end. Thank you for that. Just quickly, is there a way to hold people accountable? It was just the last question. You know, if you see somebody doing something that clearly is.
We have penalties in place. So, I mean, that's really our only trigger is if the education doesn't work, then we lean on the enforcement. So, if they see something blatant happening, let us know, and we'll dig into it and see if we can engage with that customer to either educate them or, find other ways to motivate them to comply.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to be a speaker at the Outdoor Art Club. And I'm sure we're going to need more as the season goes on and situation changes. So we really appreciate your being here. Thank you. Okay. I just wanted to tell you that the next public presentation of the Outdoor Art Club will be Thursday, October 7th at 1 o'clock. Mayor John McCauley and City Manager Alan Piombo will provide an update on many of the issues facing Mill Valley, fire preparedness, traffic congestion, and ongoing initiatives related to diversity, equity, and affordable housing. You can register for this and all future webinars by going to the Outdoor Art Club website and clicking on public events. And today's events will be available on the website along with all the other lectures this year. So thank you so much for joining us.